Hello, welcome to the Age of Sigmar Sat Center. I'm your host, Rob, and today we're going to be looking at the event results from Age of Sigmar tournaments from around the world. We're looking at 2,000 point single player events, and we have, for today, I think we have 4 countries and we have 6 events covering 218 players this week, which is really exciting. These are all new General's Handbook. All new General's Handbook missions, so that's great. So all new points, all new General's Handbook, so loads of inferences, loads of kind of thoughts that can be taken away from these wins. I'm not going to be going through the 4-1s today. There's a few too many for me to go through today. So I'm just going to be looking at the 5-0s or maybe the 4s and a draw, or if something pops out and I think is interesting. What I'm really hoping to see today, because we've had a lot of 4-1s for our Oakenbrow lists. I'm really hoping at some point we see Sylvaneth, maybe an Oakenbrow list, win a tournament. Maybe also see some like Meat Fist Ogres going 4-1 would be great as well. Something like that. I'd like to see Ogres still up there now that the Iron Blasters maybe aren't as good. That would be really good. Hope you enjoy the show, and let's get into the different events. First event that we're going to cover is the Alliance Open Masters in the Netherlands, where the Dutch live. It was at this beautiful hotel, the Hotel Schluppli, which is going to be the venue for the AoS Worlds event. The AoS Worlds event. And it was in the 5-0 bracket, there were 52 players. And in the 5-0 bracket, we had 2 players. We had Mitchell de Boer, and I hope I'm saying that right. And then we had Paul Priosi. Paul Priosi was running, so these are 2 5-0s. Paul Priosi was running Illumineth Castle. So there you go. You should know what that is now, and if you don't know what that is, please go and check out the Wargamer YouTube and you can go find out. But Mitchell de Boer, now that's the big story I think from the weekend, is we've been talking about this a lot on the Stat Center, and he was running the Oakenbrow list for Sylvaneth. He had an Arch Revenant who had the Aspect of the Champion Stubborn as a Rhinox. He had Treelord Ancient. He had a Warsong Revenant. And then he had a Battle Mage of Gur, obviously. He had a unit of 10 Dryads, 5 Tree Revs, and 2 Tree Lords in his list with Chronomantic Cog, Spike Swarm Hive. Now, the important part here is that all of it, if it's a monster, fights in its top bracket unless it's down to its last wound. It heals every turn. There are more heals in the list, like Treelord Ancient has got Regrowth. You're able to put down a Wildwood thanks to the Treelord Ancient and teleport to them and then charge out. And you're going to get pluses to that charge thanks to Spike Swarm Hive and the Battle Mage of Gur, which is very, very effective. Then you've got Treelord fighting and shooting. The Treelords can make you fight last, and they can make it so you can't pile in. And then Durthu is going to go and lift you off the board. Warsong Revenant is not only doing, is not even making it so you get +1 rend. He's also making it so he's doing mortal wounds outranged through that tree as well, thanks to the Spellsinger command trait. And the Battle Mage is giving you pluses to that charge. So loads of strength in this list. Excellent little bit. Absolutely huge fan of this going well. So now we're on that kind of like hype train for the Oakenbrow Treelord list. We saw it go 4-1 twice last week. We saw it go 4-1 the week before. I've already done an interview with someone who was running all Treelords all the way back in September, and that video is available on my Patreon right now. That's Simon, so Grubby Ungor, lovely fella. So he talks a lot about that tech and how it works and all of those different elements. So it's a great list. And now Mitchell has taken it to a 5-0. The first person I've seen take it to a 5-0, which is excellent. Sylvaneth also rarely go 5-0. And it's been really nice to see them pivot as an army from trying to make it so that they're doing these Kurnoth Hunter bombs that don't do much to these monsters that are really adding some extra elements to them. So yeah, really, really good. Go Mitchell taking Mitchell also, thank you to Tom and Jeffrey, who are the organisers of the event, who are both in the chat, telling us that that Mitchell also went 5-0 with the same list 2 weeks ago here. So Treelord lists, very, very real. The Alliance Open guys run events all the time, so if you want to go check them out, then just type in Alliance Open Netherlands and try and get yourself over there if you get the chance. And there's a bunch of 4-1s. We have Russell Taylor, Stephen Follows, Dennis Baumaster, Levy Annan, Nick Frey, Christopher Salemi, and David Rowland, all in the 4-1. One of them, Dennis Baumaster, was running an Ogre More Tribes list with 2 Tyrants in the subfaction Meat Fist, and then 4 units of 6 Ogre Gluttons, and then 2 units of 4 Iron Guts, doing the chat have told me roughly 30 mortal wounds on the charge, which is pretty exciting. So I love that. So congratulations to him, and I hope everyone had a great time at the event. Our next event takes us over to Italy, to the Gods of War 3 event, and this is our largest event of the week with 84 players happening in Italy. So they have an interesting. This is where it was. It looks like a very Mediterranean seaside holiday hotel. I won't lie, I'd like to get myself over there because this looks like a great place to have a little coffee and sit down. But some classic Italian driving there. One of the road signs has been hit by a car and run over. I don't know if Italians can or can't drive. That's just meant to be a funny joke. So some Italians like, hey, Rob! Hey! Hey, Rob, you bitch! Anyway, the event was won by... let me just double check here. Meme Venerzaro from Team Italy with his Slaves to Darkness list. But it does look like on BCP he lost a game, right? So I'm only reading out the 5-0s. So we got Luca Quinal with his Inet Deepkin, and we have Francesco Zella with his Scarlet Doom. So my apologies to everyone who thinks I shouldn't be doing that. Right, so the Inet Deepkin list was from the subfaction Morphan. Had a Tidecaster, an Achillean Thrallmaster, a Soul Render, and Lotan. And then it's got 2 units of 20 Namati Thralls, and then 3 units of Namati Reavers, and then the Achillean Leviathan. Now, you can get a little bit more in this list now than you could, thanks to the Battle Scroll update with points reduction, especially the big points reduction to the Leviathan. The interesting thing here is that we haven't seen the Slap King. So this would be an Achillean King riding a Deepmare mount, which would do a load of extra damage. And I actually think that that's very, very interesting. You've ended up with more actual characters, specifically the Thrallmaster, who works really, really well with the Namati Thralls. You also have Lotan, who's great because he gives you a +1 to wound aura. The Achillean Leviathan is really excellent with the Thralls because you get +1 save with the Thralls. Thralls and Deepkin are wildly difficult to Alpha Strike when there's a Leviathan in the list because you immediately get +2 to your save on the first turn because you get cover and you get +1 save from Leviathan. So they actually can ignore a lot of rend. It's actually pretty cool. And then the Thrallmaster's obviously got the start of combat. It's got the ability to choose what effects you're going to do, which is really, really good for those Thralls as well. Then you've got the Soul Render that's going to return more Thralls. I'm almost certain that's what the Soul Render does. And then the Tidecaster is your general. Yeah, I learned the hard way. -1 to wound, yeah. Yeah, it's really hard. Like, you always think, I'm going to go over there and beat up those elves. And those pluses to save, they're very tough to alpha, right? Yeah. And then the Tidecaster has also got the Tunnel Master aspect to the champion, which is going to be such a classic right now. I've heard there might be some 3D sculpts available soon where you can just have any model be a Tunnel Master, effectively. The Tunnel Caster. Now, the Nighthaunt list that also went 5-0 was called... was a Scarlet Doom subfaction. Wasn't called anything, sorry. Had a Guardian Souls, a Krulgas Cruciator, a Lord Executioner, and then 2 Spirit Torments. Two Spirit Torments, obviously, returning those models at the end of combat back to 2 units. You got a unit of 20 Bladegeist Revenants twice, and then 2 units of 10 Bladegeist Revenants for a total of 60 Bladegeist Revenants. And then some Banshees. You've got the anti-magic tech, and then 3 Spirit Hosts. So you're reducing damage down by 1 from the Cruciator. You are returning models. You have an unrenderable save. You have a 5-up ward save. You have a -1 to wound artifact. It's just a very, very tough army to deal with. And then they retreat and charge, so you can't lock them in. And then when they charge you, they reduce your save or your to hit or your to wound. So their combat is really, really effective. The only thing I would say about this list, or generally about Nighthaunt, is that they are slower, but that's not really a problem anymore because, again, if all you're doing is farming points, which is the right way to win games, so 25, not 28, this is a great army because it hits the midboard in every way that you want. The Artifact Auto Slays a model. Thank you very much. The Artifact Auto Slays a model, the Slitter. But either way, it's going to reduce a lot of the rend that's coming out. Be quite fun to watch this go into the Ogre list with all the Mortal Wound impact hits. I think that might be... A lot of people really rating Nighthaunt this GHB, maybe. but ogres are going to do a lot of mortal wound impact hits, and that's not going to be great for this army. But in this particular instance, they went 5-0, and I think that's cool to see. So congratulations to them. And shout out to everyone in Italy. Hope you had a great time, and hope the event. Our next event takes us over to the United States of America, and we're going over to Missouri. I don't think I've said that right. Missouri. Probably a Waffle House there that I haven't visited yet, which makes me sad. Run by LaRon Roberts. He had 30 players playing at his event, and it was won by Fyreslayer's list, played by Murigank Jar. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name. I'm sorry. So, that guy. And he went 5-0 with Fyreslayer's Greyfjord Lodge. Greyfjord? Fjord? Maybe I don't know how to say any words. Fyreslayer's Greyfjord Lodge. Okay? He had Auric Runefather on Magmadroth. With the command trait Blood of the Berserker, the artifact, the Draft of Magmold Ale, and the Magmold trait Coalheart Ancient, which makes him tough to kill. This is going to be what we call the Slap Daddy or King or whatever, but he's just a big fighty Fyreslayer bro. Auric Runemaster and Auric Runesmiter. He's got Curse, the Auric Runemaster, which is actually pretty hot for this army. And then there's a Battlesmith with the Norsidian icon. And then the aspect of the champion leadership of the Alpha. This is pretty much always the combo you'll see on a Fyreslayer's army, because leadership of the Alpha once per battle allows you to pick use one of the generic command abilities, so rally or redeploy, and then do it 3 times. Now, that's pretty awesome, especially on a Battlesmith who's got a 4-up rally on his war scroll. So when he issues the rally command, he does it on a 4-up. He's also a totem because he's got a big flag. So then that means he does command abilities from 18 inches. So it's 3 4-up rallies. Once per battle only, though. Now, thankfully, there's no way for anyone to do 3 4-up rallies every turn. Otherwise, that would be probably a problem in the game. And then there's an Auric Runeson in the list. Then, for his units, he's got 10 Volkite Berserkers, and he's got 2 units of 15 Hearthguard Berserkers. Now, Hearthguard Berserkers are really excellent in close combat. They're really, really powerful. What's really nice about having I don't really have a name for this yet. I talked about it on the last Masterclass video. So if you're going to look the Bunker Buster list. But I call it, it's not defense in depth, but it's kind of like defense in wounds, especially for armies that can rally really well. What I mean by this is he can take a lot of the front models from a unit so that they're no longer engaged in combat. You can't rally if your unit is engaged in combat. So if there's something that ends up hitting his Hearthguard Berserker block and killing a portion of them, which is going to be quite tough to do as they're quite survivable anyway, but when he does do that, he can remove models from out of range of 3 inches so that in the next turn he can do the rally. So you see this, like, you don't necessarily see this with Stormcast Dragons. It's different. Stormcast Dragons just have, if you have a unit of 4 and then you're eventually reduced to 1, you get to roll 3 dice, and any 6 is a massive return on that command point investment. In this situation, he's given himself the ability to lose a lot of wounds and then start to return those, but also mechanically return them in a way that he can use the rally, so outside of range. Revenant Seekers are good for this. Dragon Ogres used to be really good for this because they had a big base, so they would put, like, let's say, out of a unit of 6 Dragon Ogres, when they could do this, they would have like 4 or 5 at the front and then 1 behind, and then they would kill the 4 or 5 at the front. You would use a command point to make them immune to battle shock, and next turn you would start to rally them. So there you go. Really, really effective. Really, 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 really effective. Okay, and then he's also got the Molten Infernoth and the Runic Firewall, and that's really important because you can just get your grand strategy without even really needing to engage with your opponent, as we've discussed several times. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Several times in the game. So grand strategies, if you don't have to do them, as in go and achieve them, and you can just have one on the board. 25, not 28. 25, not 28. We'll talk about that on another show. 25, not 28. Anyway, hope everyone had a great time. Looked like a fun place. It was at the Game Night shop. It looks really fun. And if you're interested and you ever want to go to Missouri and you want to go to the Game Night shop, around the corner there's an antique mall. And there's a tropical pet store, and they currently have a sale on fish. So something to check out. Pretty nice. Our second and final event was in England, and it was in Bournemouth. It was at the Bournemouth International Centre roundabout, which is just a roundabout next to the Royal Exeter Motel. which is a pretty risky place to play Warhammer, but either way. We had 40 players playing at this event, which again, that would have been pretty tight to put them all in. But Alexander Wilkins was running the event, so this was Beachhead, and I think they had a variety of different events at this event. We know that the Titanicus tabletop tournament, or the Team Titanicus tournament, or whatever it was, with like 40 players played there, so that's pretty cool. The event was won by, let me make sure I get the name right, by Chris Robertson. And Chris Robertson was running a Cities of Sigmar list from Tempest Eye. He had a Battle Mage with the Arcane Tome, and then he had a Rune Lord, and he had the Aspect of the Champion Tunnel Master, but importantly with the Universal Prayer Scripture Curse, which is come into effect in a moment. He had 20 Hammerers, 10 Iron Breakers, and 30 Iron Drakes, and then he had a unit of Dracothian Guard Fulminators, and he had a unit of Achillean Morsar Guard. So those were allies, right? Yeah, dwarfs. Dwarfs won an event. Now, the Rune Lord adds +1 rend to units, which is very useful, especially to the Hammerers or the Iron Drakes when they're shooting at range. They've got the Soul Screen Bridge in the list as well, so when they're set up, which doesn't count as a move, you can be able to teleport the unit across the bridge, shoot, and then have 2 shots, because Iron Drakes, if they haven't moved, they get to fire twice. The Achillean Morsar Guard can be a nice cheap screen, or they can go grab an objective, and the Iron Breakers can make a nice screen as well. The Hammerers will do a lot of damage in combat, and then the Battle Mage can go off and achieve some battle tactics. But it's going to be those that unit of 4 Fulminators that do a lot of the heavy lifting in this list. You're constantly having to worry about the threat range of the Fulminators while getting shot by the Iron Drakes. It's a very mid-board army. But he went 5-0 with it, and that's really exciting. And he should be super chuffed with himself. And then 4 in a draw, Mike Wilson, Zinch Mike, was running Daughters of Cain, Dreichi Ganeth list. He had, he did not have Marathi. What he had was, I had Queen on Cauldron of Blood, Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood, Blood Rat Medusa, 2 High Gladiatrixes, 2 units of 30 Witch Elves, 10 Witch Elves, and 2 units of Heart Renders, and then the Heart of Fury. Now, we talked about this last year. Jeffrey Mazura from the Alliance Open was already running this a lot last year. The High Gladiatrixes make it so that the Witch Elves can hit on 2s, wound on 2s, which is really, really scary with the amount of attacks that they can do. And then the Hag Queens on Cauldron of Blood and the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood will obviously buff those units as well. So it's a lot of bodies to hold objectives, but it's also units that do a lot of combat in here as well. And then the 2 Heart Renders are going to achieve battle tactics very easily and jump across the board. And then the Blood Rat Medusa in the list had Tunnel Master. So I think if I do the math right in my head, I think he wouldn't have had to even ever touch his opponent to achieve 3 battle tactics on like turns 1 to 3. If I've done using the book tactics and using Tunnel Master to achieve one of the core tactics, which is pretty interesting and part of an ongoing conversation from me. So yeah, great event. If you get the opportunity to go there, go check it out. A final event of the weekend was the War of the Spider God, organized by Big Bobby Slimes at the TSN Arena. We had 14 players play, and it was won by Mr. Matthew Gouldsborough. Matthew Gouldsborough from the Bad Moon Loons. He was running a Sylvaneth list. It was a Heartwood Glade. He had a Lariel the Everqueen, an Arch Revenant, who was the War Singer, and he did not have Tunnel Master. Instead, he had the Aspect of the Champion, fueled by Gurish Rage. Then he had a Branch Witch, and he had 2 units of 3 Colonel Thunters with Great Bows, 5 Tree Revs, and 5 Gossamer Archers, with a Spike Swarm Hive and Chronomantic Cogs. So Cogs, again, wildly effective for the Sylvaneth list, as it's got a lot of casts. Very, very effective. And then he was just shooting stuff with the Great Bows and Alariel. I think at one point he killed Nagash with Alariel's spear. Jumping around with the Tree Revs. And then the Gossamer Archers, almost certainly he would have summoned another unit of Colonel Thunters with Great Bows as well from Alariel. So he's firing 9 Colonel Thunters with Great Bows a turn. Then shooting Alariel's spear running across the board with a Lariel, charging and retreating back. Gossiping Archers blocking anything from attacking the castle. Spike Swarm Hive giving all the additional buffs. So very, very, very effective. Now, quite interestingly for Matt, if you did go and watch the first masterclass about the Lumineth Castle, where we interviewed Matt about the Lumineth Castle, because he'd been playing it a lot and playing it really well, he played Mr. Math Mallow, who we also did an interview with, about this or a Sylvaneth list, which Matt played each other at the Nottingham GT, and then Matt since then, so Matt, who was Lumineth, is now a Sylvaneth player, but might be a BC Chaos player, not sure, switched because he was like, this is the way to beat it. So that's quite interesting. So if you do want to listen, and Matt Mallow himself has done really well with this list as well. So real power from this list. The event, foolishly, the TO, I got no respect for him at all personally, was running the event, and he made twists and turns, the battle plan where objectives turn on and off as the 5th battle plan. Terrible decision, really, really bad. All of the players disliked it a lot. I couldn't, in good conscience, encourage you to keep doing it. So don't. Just be really conscious of that. That's all I've got to say. Right. So where are we at? Where are we at? Okay, that's a great question. We are at the end of the stats show. Now, the stats website is currently down, but might be up by the time this video goes live. So do go check out all of the stats for the different factions on thehonestwargamer.com and click the stats tab. And you should be able to check out all the stats produced by Rob and Ziggy. Special shout out to both of those two people. What are my thoughts on the event, on the results from the weekend? Well, loads of different factions are doing well. We've had Fireslayers do well, Sylvaneth do well, like loads of different factions. And that's really exciting. Nighthaunt we saw do really well. Daughters of Cain, but not Daughters of Cain, with Marathi and the Bow Snakes. Like, just a variety, Inet Deepkin. So a range of different armies, which is really, really exciting. So that's good. It's good, a healthy opportunity for different armies to win the game. We still, as of yet, I don't think have felt the impact of the new Beast of Chaos or the new Gloomspike Gitz book. So it'll be exciting to see how both of those two armies do shake up the meta and shake it up significantly. The common and obvious things are that we're seeing a lot of Tunnel Master, like as a aspect of the champion. That makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at how battle tactics work. We also have got to deal with probably book tactics as being very common now at tournaments and book grand strategies. This actually wildly imbalances the game in a way that's going to take a lot more than this little snippet of conversation to talk about. But the game is effectively a game of scoring points, not engaging with your opponent. And of course, if you talk to anyone who plays at a very high level, being able to play and not engage is far more reliable than having to play and engage, because your opponent can potentially make it so that you can't do stuff, and that's never good. So that's quite an interesting kind of place, like 25 points, not 28 points. Talk more about that on another show. So that's really, really interesting. Looks like there's loads of events around the world again. We're picking up steam, bigger and bigger events. Huge event in Italy, 83 players, the largest one we've had so far. So that's really fun. Lots of people traveling. We had some people from the UK traveling over to the Netherlands to play, and a few other people from other places around Europe going to the Netherlands for their event. That's really cool. We have little events happening all over the USA. So loads of events happening all around the world. That's really fun. Love that. Yeah, that's it. Thanks to the chat for hanging out with me today while we did this. Hope everyone enjoyed it. And talk to you soon. Bye. Yeah, like and subscribe, probably, if you want.